Naledi, thanks once again. If you would have seen the Minister of Innovation and Science, Dr. Blend Nzimande, yesterday, one of the points he highlighted about South Africa's successes in science is the SKA, and this was reiterated by President Cyril Ramaphosa in his speech when he said that it is fitting that the World Science Forum coincides with a special ceremony to celebrate the start of construction of the Global Square Kilometre Array, that's the SKA, radio telescope hosted in South Africa. He went on to say the SKA is just one example of African-led science excellence on the global stage. And to bring in someone who works on the science excellence, Dr. Lindsay Magnus, we spoke to you earlier, just giving us a sense of what we'll be talking about. Let's remind our viewers, not just South Africans only, because SABC News goes out to other parts of the continent. What is the SKA?
So the SKA is a project that looks to observe the universe, understand how the universe fits together, but it uses radio waves to observe the universe. And radio waves just give us a very interesting way of observing things that we possibly wouldn't be able to see with just using normal optical telescopes.
You know, we were joking earlier to say, just in terms of the usage of the telescopes, is there life out there?
Well, the nice thing about a telescope like this is we can look for the building blocks of life. So a biologist will tell us that these are the ingredients that we need in order for a life to exist, and we can use the telescope to look for the fingerprints of the molecules and the chemicals and so on that are needed in order to possibly make life. And so that's what a radio telescope gives us to do, the opportunity to see are the conditions right and possibly whether or not we can detect something.
For years we've spoken about the project and showed pictures, as we do in the background. I don't know if our cameraman can reach out to that. And we're only talking of construction now. What are those building blocks that led to where we are?
So one of the key decisions that was made in South Africa was to build technology that served as a precursor for this global telescope, and that was the Meerkat telescope. So the Meerkat telescope is a collection of 64 of these big dishes that has been operating in the Karoo since its inauguration and has been making groundbreaking scientific discoveries already with the technologies that will eventually become part of the SKA telescope.
So construction starts now. What does that constitute?
So this is the next phase. So eventually we're hoping to get 197 of these big dishes deployed in the Karoo. So that will then include the 64 an extra 133 new dishes that will be built and deployed into the Karoo. So this phase of the project now is the beginning of the construction of that next phase, the 133 dishes that will eventually form part of this big telescope.
So part of the gathering here, the conversation, is inclusivity and making sure that we bring citizens along as we break down scientific processes. A person watching from home and wondering how it benefits them to have the SKA, how do we respond to that?
So the scientific discoveries help us understand where we fit in the universe. And it's through some of these big scientific discoveries in the past that new technologies, new industries have come about. And so, especially for a telescope like this that is very dependent on ICT, computer technologies, these are the benefits, the high-speed networks, the computer networks and so on. Those are the sorts of things that can benefit us at home, especially as more and more of our things are talking to each other at home. So knowing how these things do and using at a scale like this, the size and volume of the data just helps us understand those things better. But of course, the other thing is that you asked the question, are we alone in the universe? Or, is there life out there? It just gives us an opportunity as South Africans to realize that the discoveries that will be made that will answer those questions are being made here in South Africa and on the African continent. You don't have to travel around the world to do it. You can do it right here at home. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And that, as South Africans and Africans, is something that we can derive a great sense of pride from, is we're doing it right here and it's available to all of us.
So President Cyril Ramaphosa in his speech was saying that it's timely that the World Science Forum is taking place at this time, that you're starting the construction. How are you incorporating the SKA conversation into the World Science Forum conversation?
Well, astronomy is one of the oldest sciences, and it's something that can be done in your backyard just looking up at the sky. And so, it's a great catalyst for scientific conversation. Not only that, what we've been able to do with the SKA is bring countries together, bring industries together to solve problems. And this can be used as a blueprint for other sciences and other disciplines to see how to bring people together. You know, the international governmental organization, that is the SKO, is the newest big science organization of its kind in the world. And it can serve as a blueprint for others as they want to look at ways to bring international collaboration together.
It's all good and well to think big deal, we have the SKA, but just in terms of ranking us with other scientific focused countries, where do we rank? Where are we placed?
So what's nice been about the SKA project is that it started with a handful of astronomers when the project started, and we now have over 200 astronomers working in the field here in South Africa. So that's a massive growth over the past 25 years that this project has been evolving. Not only that, the scientific publications from the data captured here in South Africa is leading the world thought process. And so South African contributions to science in the field of astronomy and radio astronomy are shooting up the list quite rapidly, and it's a key of great things to come.
So those contributions, do they only benefit South Africa, or is it a global conversation?
So science in this case is very collaborative in nature. So there are partnerships that are around the world. You know, there are key projects that are driven out of South Africa specifically and have South African scientists working in them. But it is very much a global effort, and some of these collaborations do span across the world. Yes.
There's the issue of development, bringing young people into the conversation and getting them interested in science. What are you doing in this regard?
So this is where we work very closely with our partner here in South Africa, the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory. And they've done a fantastic job of creating an environment where they're able to support people all the way from high school level through to completing their PhDs and eventually going into a postdoc research position in a university. And so they've done fantastic work of creating that environment that sustains people and carries them through that process. Specifically in Carnarvon, this week we've heard fantastic stories of kids being involved in robotic programs out of rural schools in Carnarvon, getting them involved in science, making sure that there's teachers in the schools that can, offer the subjects to them, and all of this creates that fantastic pipeline that creates great thinkers for the future.
What does the future hold?
It's open, and what's great is that what we've got here are the building blocks for a fantastic instrument. This thing is going to be operating here in Africa for 50 years plus, and right now today we're at the beginning of that. The foundation is being set, and only great things can come.
Awesome, and thank you so much for talking to us from the SKA project in South Africa, Dr. Lindsay Magnus, and just talking to us about the possibilities. If we zoom into that picture over there that shows you that there's also an Australian component, and we don't talk much about that. The Australian component, what does it mean for this development?
So the observatory as a whole constitutes two telescopes, the mid telescope built here in South Africa and a low telescope built in Australia. Effectively, what these two telescopes do is they give you a different way to look at the universe using different frequencies. Very different technologies used in both places, but by using both of them to observe the universe, we get more information about the things we're looking at.
Dr. Lindsay Magnus, thank you so much for talking to us, and let's take it back to Johannesburg now.
Well, thank you so much. That day, Desiree Chauke speaking to us from the Cape Town International Convention Centre.